Hi everyone, this is Stephanie Schubert with Pacifica Network Roundtable. And today we have Bennett Kobb, who has a long career with radio. He started at KPFT in Houston. He worked for FEMA for a long time, and now he's a technical volunteer for KZSM in San Marcos, Texas. And William Bilancio is joining him. He's a station manager at WBWK. He has a strong technology background, so these guys are great guys to talk to us about EAS rules for the FCC. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Bennett.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you, Stephanie. It's great to be on a Pacifica call here. I did start my radio career at KPFT, Pacifica Station in Houston, back in the 70s, shortly before KPFT went on the air. My career there was cut short by a couple of explosives, as most of you know, but KPFT survived. And I
That's right. You
understand
guys who maybe there, in case there's someone who doesn't know that KPFT got bombed by the Ku Klux Klan
bombed by the Klan twice.
twice.
Twice and has survived and has recently celebrated 55 years on the air. So
Wow,
congratulations to Pacifica Foundation and KPFT on that.
for
So
sure.
we are here at KZSM-LP in San Marcos, Texas. We are smack in the middle between the two big cities of Austin and San Antonio. And before I retired here to San Marcos, I was a contractor at FEMA, which shares responsibility for the emergency alert system. EAS shares responsibility with the FCC. I worked in a division called National Continuity Programs. And my first day there, I asked them, what is National Continuity Programs? And they said it is keeping the country running after half the population is missing or dead. So I didn't have any further questions after that, but we are actually getting into the subject of emergencies. And within this program is IPAWS, the Integrated Public Alert and Warning System, which aggregates together the EAS and other public alerting systems, including wireless emergency alerts on phones and some other systems we're going to mention. So this is not a big technical tutorial about all of that. We are going to get to the recent FCC rules on that, but I do want to introduce a little bit more about IPAWS and EAS, which is to many stations kind of a mysterious thing. I do also want to mention that EAS is one of those things that is an unfunded mandate. The government requires you, if you're a licensed station, to have the EAS device. It has to be connected to FEMA over the internet, and you have to keep it ready for use. But the government does not pay for it. It's a rather expensive piece of equipment. In some cases, the local or state governments may help you with the cost of that device. And certainly if you're a new station or if you have a construction permit, you're in the process of planning or building your station, you have to be aware that this is not optional. FEMA has a program that was intended to help pay the cost of emergency alerting readiness, about $48 million a year. But it turned out that a lot of that money went to NPR stations and PBS TV stations through the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. And we all know that our wonderful president doesn't think much of NPR or PBS, and he got Congress to close the CPB. So that program, which is called Next Generation Warning Systems, is no longer, broadcasters are no longer eligible for that money. Only state governments and some tribal governments are eligible for that money. But if you have a connection with the emergency management agencies in your state, you may be able to get some of that funding for your station. So back to IPAWS and EAS. The number one job of these systems is to enable the president to send an alert to the entire public by radio and TV and mobile phones within 10 minutes of his request from wherever he is in the world. In EAS, this is called the National Emergency Message. The three-letter code for this is EAN. On phones, it's called a national alert. It used to be called a presidential alert, but the government was actually sued over that by people who did not want to have their lives disturbed by the president. I think they lost that lawsuit, but to sort of support the idea, they changed it from presidential alert to national alert. Now, obviously, that is not a normal situation. The national emergency message has never been sent in an emergency, only tests or mistakes, of which there have been a few. So normally the White House doesn't need the EAS, so it carries other alerts for abducted children, that's your Amber Alert program, and many other hazards, fires, floods, tornadoes, criminal incidents, telephone outages, 911 outages, that's called a TOE or telephone outage emergency, and the like. These messages originate with your local or state public safety agencies and emergency managers. These have to go through FEMA training and certification in order to get access to the IPAWS system. When they make it through those procedures, they're called alerting authorities. It's important to know that radio stations are not alerting authorities. The FCC calls radio and TV stations EAS participants. And you'll see that term a lot if you look into the rules. Also, weather alerts, which are some of the most common alerts that come through, those originate in your local weather service forecast office. Whether your station forwards these alerts to the listeners is a choice that you make when you set up your EAS system. A point that is interesting to me is that the government actually does not know to what extent, if any, that stations actually forward those alerts to the listening audience. Some do, but probably, I believe, many stations, especially commercial stations, do not forward those alerts to the audience for a variety of reasons. So while thousands of emergency alerts are sent every year, no one knows how many of those actually are broadcast over the radio. EAS forwarding, that's what this is called, relaying or forwarding the alert, is voluntary on the part of the station, except for the EAN and the required tests. Well, tests are not emergency alerts, they're tests. So the only real alert you're required to broadcast is the EAN, which has never been sent. IPAWS also includes something called the National Public Warning System. This is not well known to the public. It's not classified, but the information about it has only recently been made public. This is also called the PEP system. Some of your engineers have been in this for a while, may know that term, the PEP system. This is a group of radio stations that are equipped to go on the air after a major national crisis. We're talking about nuclear attack or something that wipes out electrical power and communications across a wide area of the country. These stations are equipped with special bunkers, protective bunkers, and they're equipped to go on the air for 2 months, independent of electrical power. These systems in the stations in the National Public Warning System have recently become quite controversial because there is a move to require AM radios in all vehicles. A lot of the newer cars do not have AM receivers. Electric vehicles don't have AM receivers. And so there's a movement to mandate the AM receivers in the cars. These PEP stations are mostly AM stations. The list of these stations is now public, recently been made public. You can see this on the FEMA website. So once again, it is not optional. As an EAS participant, a licensed broadcast station, you must have the EAS device. It has to be connected to IPAWS over the internet. It has to be monitoring other stations, which are prescribed to you specifically by your state EAS plan. If you do not know what your state EAS plan is, or you don't have it, you need to get that. And you can find that through your state broadcasting association. It needs to be in working order. Everyone on this call should be familiar with what we call the required weekly tests and the required monthly tests of the EAS. Your station has to receive those, log them, and forward them to the audience, depending on what it is. Half of the monthly tests are during the day, and half of them in the even-numbered months are in overnight. In another couple of months, it's expected we're going to have another test. It's a national test. It's called the NPT, or National Periodic Test. We don't know exactly whether this upcoming test is going to include EAS. It may or it may not. But if it does, your station is required to participate, and you have to fill out no fewer than 3 forms with the FCC to report before, during, and after your participation in the NPT. That information will be disseminated to the Pacifica Network, I'm sure, and the many other community radio stations in our family as soon as that information is made available. If your station's ever inspected by the FCC, the inspectors don't make appointments. You have to let them in. And one of the key things they're interested in is your EAS device, whether it's there, it's on, it's working. The FCC has recently pointed out also that you cannot unplug your EAS device without permission from the commission. Some stations had to move their EAS device within their studio. They had to get special permission from FCC lawyers, and the permission only lasted an hour or two. Another station the commission became aware of was that had to move their device and didn't ask for permission first. And the FCC reserved the right to take enforcement action against that station. So they're very serious about EAS. My understanding, however, is you can unplug the thing if your station is off the air. So they're mainly interested in your station being on the air. And if it is, the EAS box has to be working. Okay, so the FCC item that we're discussing today is numbered FCC 26-38. It was released on June 29, and it has 2 parts. What we call a report and order, which is our main concern here, and separately, a further notice of proposed rulemaking, or FNPRM. The report and order is a rule change. It's actually an addition to a rule. And if you have a station, your compliance with this change is required by the end of next month. The other part, the FNPRM, the further notice, is a set of questions and proposals for EAS, including such things as software-based EAS, and other kinds of changes to the codes and the geographic portion of the alerts. And if we have time, maybe we can get into that, but those are simply proposals and questions, and they do not involve a rule that you must comply with by the end of next month. The change that was made is specifically to Rule 11.35. 11 refers to Part 11 of the FCC rules, which covers the EAS. And this rule is titled Equipment Operational Readiness. And the addition to this rule covers 3 things: passwords, software, and firewalls. But why did the FCC change anything having to do with this? Here's what the FCC said. Quote, foreign adversaries, criminals, and other bad actors can wreak havoc if they gain access to alerting systems by sending a false alert that causes public panic or delivers false information about a disaster or a crisis, or by preventing a real alert from being transmitted to the public. And continuing, they said that the requirements we adopt are narrowly tailored to address vulnerabilities that have been repeatedly exploited through a series of cyber attacks on EAS participants in recent months. In these attacks, bad actors gained control of radio broadcaster systems by exploiting improperly secured, remotely accessible equipment in the broadcast signal processing system to transmit unauthorized audio that included EAS alert tones, an offensive song that included racial slurs, and promotional content. Stephanie, am I still audible? They've cranked up some music in the other room there. You still hear me
You
okay?
sound great. It's kind of amazing how we're not hearing it. So, for those
Okay.
on the YouTubes, KZSM is having a live show right now behind Ben. So, but so far it's pretty good. So, way to go.
All right, I'm going to finish the FCC quote here. Similar attacks on broadcasters going back more than a decade have included hoax radio broadcasts about a zombie attack and false alerts about hazards sent to cable subscribers through the infiltration of EAS equipment. Successful attacks have continued into 2026. So the three things that the commission has required now are they specify the kind of passwords that you have to put in place, not only on your EAS device, but on your studio transmitter link and any type of equipment that inserts content into the programming stream. FCC said to change any default passwords, use strong passwords, and change any password if you have reason to believe that the password has been compromised. So what do we mean by a strong password? The FCC is very specific. The password has to have at least 15 characters, and the password must not be reused on other devices in your station. The second part is to test and install security patches on your EAS equipment. Now, these are going to be provided by your vendor. There's mainly two vendors left in the EAS business, a company called Sage and another one called Digital Alert Systems. And so you should be in contact with your vendor as to updates of software for that equipment. Also, there may be software patches for other things in your audio chain that are connected to the internet, your transmitter, your digital codec, your PCs, your automation, anything that could possibly be compromised to insert unauthorized sound into your broadcast. And then the third requirement that the FCC put in place is to use a network firewall or a comparable network segmentation practice to limit remote access to your station, to limit access only to authorized uses and authorized equipment. And on that last point, and also on the point of protecting your passwords, I'd like to turn it over to William, who has some IT expertise on that subject.
Thank you,
Hey folks,
Ben.
how y'all doing?
I just want to
Thank you, Ben.
add, does anyone have any questions so far? So, all right, we're all good. Okay, thanks, William.
Yeah, no problem. Hi everybody, how you doing? Yeah, passwords, they're such a joy. Um, so I've been on the internet since, wow, since it really started, and we didn't need passwords, so now we do. The 14 or 15 character password is very, very secure. It takes about 2 years for a supercomputer to break a 15 character password, especially if you're using caps and non-alphabetical or number units. So it's cool. My recommendations are always use a password manager. Do not save passwords in shared docs, post-it notes, or just writing them on a piece of blue painter's tape, which I found the other day at a station. They were live streaming it, tour for me, and I was like, oh, what's the blue tape on the transmitter? And they're like, that's our password. So we quickly got them onto a password vault. I always recommend password vaults, whether it be anything but LastPass at this point. If you want to use a commercial one, that's the one I recommend not to use. They've had too many break-ins. They're also owned by a venture capitalist company, and they're not really keeping it secure. WBWK, Brunswick Community Radio Inc., also provides Password vaults for stations, we'll set it up on our server. It uses the Bitwarden client that you would use in your browser or the desktop version. It's always good to use a password vault. It's encrypted. You can allow certain passwords to be seen by certain people, such as if you want to keep all your engineering passwords, and it should be passwords, multiple passwords. No two things should have the same passwords, like bank accounts. You don't want to do that. So we recommend, we recommend Bitwarden itself if you want to use their service, or if you want to get in touch with us at WBWK, we would gladly get you set up. There is a form at WBWK.org under the support menu section about about getting computer consulting help from us, and then I'll get and reach out to you. Firewalls, best thing ever invented? Not. Again, been in the internet for a while, and firewalls were not around at the beginning until bad things started happening. Segmentation is also very important. I agree. Your network should not be the same. If you have two locations, one for studio, one for your transmitter site, they should be separate, and they should be connected by a VPN between both the studio and the transmitter site. You should not have any public IPs connected to any of your equipment. So you would put it behind the firewall, let the firewall have your public IP address that is assigned to you either by your ISP provider or by, if you're renting transmitter space or tower space, the company that is renting that to you will give you a public IP, and you put a firewall on that, and then everything behind it, such as if you have your EAS machine unit up at the tower site, your transmitter and your remote monitoring should all be behind the firewall on a private network. So then people go, well, how do I get to it? Well, that's where VPNs come in. Technically, you should never really be doing work on your stuff unless you're in the studio. That's the rule that I was always taught, or you're physically at the transmitter site, excuse me. So putting a VPN tunnel between the two locations will give your two private networks access to each other. And that way you're not letting bad people be able to get onto your equipment to tell all your listeners that a zombie attack has happened, which I think was the best one of all the things that got that was done on takeover of systems. The zombie attack is always the best one, in my opinion. That, or the the blimp is about to explode, or turkeys are dropped at the local mall.
We didn't have much of a sense of humor about these.
I know, but you know what? You got to look at it at some point and go, all right, that was good. So what you want to do with your firewalls is not really advertise that anything's there, right? They're going to see the firewall, they're going to see the IP address, but they're not a lot of these hackers are looking at ports, and that's like 80 is for web, unencrypted web access. 443 is encrypted web access. So if you don't advertise that for your transmitters or what have you at the transmitter site, they're not going to even know really what's there. And that's why the tunnel is important between your studio and the transmitter site, because you'll be able, it will, so if you put in the IP address for your transmitter, we'll just say 10.25.1.1 into your browser at the studio, it knows that that is up at the transmitter site and will attach you or get you into the GUI of your transmitter. And one of the other things I recommend is setting up a machine at either at the studio or at the transmitter site that allows you to use a VPN client on a laptop or something if you are going to work from home. That way you're going, again, through an encrypted tunnel once that's set up and connected to be able to do the work that you need to, so you don't have to drive to the or go to the studio, which we all love to do. I don't know why we wouldn't be there anyway. So where's KUCR? Where are you guys?
University of California, Riverside.
All right, cool. I like I just like the call letters. That's why it caught my attention. Sorry. So we will also help you, WBWK and Brunswick Community Radio Inc. will also help you get these things set up as well. Well, I say we, it's really just me, but get things set up for you or consult with you all, let you know the best ways to do things. And that's what we did for KZSM to get them set up to have a secure communication between studio and transmitter site. And it's also using this VPN tunnel. If your codec unit doesn't have a private VPN like the Comdex units do, then you would be also sending your feed from the studio up to the transmitter site over this tunnel, which also is encrypted. And actually, it's pretty good. You're not using a lot of bandwidth on either end. So that's all I have. You guys got any questions?
Does everyone feel fairly confident about the way their EAS device is set up? It's a very complex piece of equipment, maybe even more complex than your transmitter. I was working on EAS at FEMA, and I was intimidated at times when setting up our EAS device here at this station. The manual that we had to review, the instruction manual for our unit, was for TV stations as well as radio stations. It didn't cleanly separate those two. So it requires some focused attention. Also, you need to be sure that you're forwarding the required monthly tests to the audience. There's two types of tests: the required weekly test, which your device is supposed to receive and log internally, but that's not required to be sent to the listener. The required monthly tests are required. And those are scheduled in advance. The schedule is available usually from your state broadcaster association. If you don't have it, you should get it from them. In this way, you can plan ahead. You can be aware, for example, that the next test is going to appear at 11 a.m. or something on a particular day. It may happen in the middle of a talk show or an important interview, but you'll be informed in advance. Also, something that comes up a lot is we have to spend all this money and all this attention on EAS, but it isn't used very much. Of course, the national alert has never been sent. We hope it doesn't happen in our lifetime. So what's the big deal with this? Well, some of us are pretty concerned about this. One of the arguments you get from emergency managers is,
Ben, you went on mute. There you go.
I went on mute. We're not going to use the EAS because it covers too wide of an area. Let's say we have a disaster situation in a specific area of the community. We're going to send a phone alert to the cell tower that covers that area. We're not going to bother with EAS. But yours truly has some issues with this, as we did at FEMA. First of all, I can guarantee you that many, many people never receive alerts on their phone. I know that in particular because at FEMA, it was my job to answer hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails we got from people wanting to know why they didn't get an alert on their phone or a test. My spouse got it, my coworkers got it, my kids got it. I want those alerts and I'm not getting them. FEMA, will you please look up my phone number and please connect to my phone and tell me why I'm not getting your emergency alerts? Of course, FEMA doesn't keep anybody's phone numbers. The wireless emergency alert system doesn't even use phone numbers. So we didn't have much to tell them other than various glitches, maybe signal propagation. Maybe they had turned off all alerts in their phone. Here in Texas, an independent study has shown that a greater percentage of the population turns off all alerts in their phones more than any other state. We think we know why that is. Texas is a very big state. We have a lot of child abductions, a lot of Amber Alerts, and these can occur many, many miles away from where the recipient is, but they will always send that alert to the entire state. Same thing with what are called blue alerts. A blue alert means that a public safety officer has been hurt or killed or is missing, and people don't like getting those either. They turn them all off in the phone. This is a problem. Even if a person has the alert turned on in their phone settings, well, they may be driving, looking at the road like they're supposed to, instead of looking at the phone. But if they're listening to the radio, they can hear the alert. We had a situation here. We had a shooting just around the corner from this radio station. And they did not use the EAS, nor did police come around the corner and tell us to tell our audience, we were live on the air at the time, not to approach the downtown area. So myself, I've been on record about this. Our good friends at a station in Louisville, Kentucky, have had two serious disasters there where EAS was not used. And they're pressing their local emergency authorities to find out why they are not using this system to alert people who happen to be listening to the radio and don't want to get involved in some kind of hazardous situation.
I see we have a question from Kevin. He says, I understand that Sage is no longer making EAS devices. Will they be updating the system for this new password requirement?
Sage has put out a bulletin to all customers exactly about this. So I urge you to consult Sage. While they're not making the equipment at this time, they are still servicing the equipment, and they're very busy working on sort of the next generation, which is software-based EAS, essentially a much smaller and less expensive hardware investment, and putting most of the brains of it in software. This is part of the further notice of proposed rulemaking, which the FCC is now considering. That it's a lot of complicated issues about how the software is certified and is it open source and a lot of things like that. So Sage is still in the picture, but if you have a Sage NDEC, you need to get their recent bulletin on exactly how to comply with these new rules.
John at Pacifica, I know you've been thinking about these issues. Did you have any thoughts you wanted to share?
Everything's been covered. You guys are doing a terrific job.
Okay.
At the Grassroots Radio Conference coming up next month in Pensacola, we hope everybody will join us there. I believe Stephanie and Ursula will be present.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be doing a presentation much like this, a little bit more detailed on the EAS setup. And we always have a great time at these conferences. That's grc2026.com or freeradiopensacola.com. Grassroots Radio Conference, always a great time.
I have a question. We have a Sage system here at KUCR UC Riverside, and our engineer did not do what he needed to do when it came in, and we were broadcasting some sort of obscenity that our system was hijacked, and we were late to this. And I heard you mentioning things that seemed to be exactly what we experienced. Could you reiterate that a bit so I could further understand what had happened to us?
Let me ask a question first. Was this unauthorized broadcast, do you believe it was connected with your EAS?
Yes.
Or some other part of your audio chain, like your internet codec?
No, it was coming through, and wouldn't you agree?
EAS,
the EAS system, yes.
Well, that's very serious. And so, in fact, you're actually required to report that to the FCC. But I strongly recommend that you get with Sage, and as much documentation as you may have on when it happened, it ought to be in your station log.
We did.
You simply need to trace through your internal network at your station and try to ascertain what occurred. It may be that there was a default password that wasn't changed. It may be that your EAS device was exposed to the internet without a change in password or without a firewall or something to isolate it. And it may have been found by those who are searching the internet for unprotected devices.
Well, it was new, it had just been installed, and I did report it to the university's people here who took it very seriously, and it was the default password that had not been changed. So how is it that they're that who first of all who might the perpetrator have been? How did they find it, and how did they employ, or how did they gain access to do
I'll
what they?
take that one. I'll take that one.
Please,
So,
William.
just give you some background. So a Windows XP box that gets put on the internet, and I used XP. Windows XP box that gets put on the internet with a public address takes 5 minutes to be hacked, just like that. There are bots out there that scan for certain ports and then reads what, and with being, once they find an open port, we'll say port 80, they will ping it or talk to it to find out what it is. Once they find out what the unit is, such as a Sage EAS machine, the default password is the default password. They've already got it, so they'll try and log in. And if they get in, they're happy. If they don't, then they'll just move on. That's why we say hide it behind a firewall so that they can't even find out that it's there. That's one of the most important things. So the other ones are the Bix boxes, not the Comdex ones, but the other company. I can never remember their name. They are another one that takes
Barracks? Would that be Barracks?
Yes, thank you, Barracks. They are another one that is like the Windows box, like an XP box. They get put on the internet and get hacked in about an hour, is what we've been finding in our research, because these scan bots go out and just start hammering IPs. I used to tell a story of when I got my first Comcast cable modem internet installed and put one of my own firewalls on it. The little NIC light on the back never blinked. It just was green the whole time, and the box on top of the cable modem itself, the LAN light, just stayed on because there were so many people trying to be on this network and take over people's boxes. So they're out there. You'll never find out who took over your box, I hate to tell you, unless you called the FBI and they actually started looking into it. It's not going to happen. It takes a lot of forensic security, cybersecurity forensic teams, not many of them, but at least a good one, to be able to find the logs, look at where it came from, and then backtrack on the IP. But a lot of them are behind VPNs or what have you. I know that there are a lot of these bots on AWS units that people have bought, and that's what they're using them for. But Amazon won't shut them off, unfortunately. So
I don't want to worry people.
They're right. Go ahead, Ben. Sorry.
But I being sort of a regulatory guy, if the word got out that your station, and by your I mean anyone here, was compromised in an attack like this, the FCC may no longer take a helpful, supportive attitude because these rules have now changed. And I predict that they're going to be concerned, did you or did you not comply with these new rules, which are intended exactly to prevent these kinds of incidents? So that's why I do recommend, again, that you write down 11.35. That's the exact rule on equipment readiness that includes these new portions. Be familiar with it and take whatever measures you need to protect your network and your EAS equipment.
Just to be clear, this happened years ago with the acquisition of a new unit.
Yeah, and that's what happens. I'll be honest with you. A lot of engineers, and I'm one of them, and I'm an engineer, but a lot of the old timers, they just slap the equipment in and move on. And I'm not slamming them, because I have a lot of old friends that will report, that call me and go, I just did this, help me. So it's not, they're getting new equipment. People want to get it in quickly because it's a new shiny box and they want to be able to show their team that, hey, look at this new shiny box and this is how it works. And they don't think about it. I actually have an EAS machine here that I bought at a auction from that station in Virginia, and they had the default password on it. So it's not, I plugged it in and it got changed and then promptly unplugged it because it still needs to be programmed. So
William, was that our station, WERA? Oh, I'm mortified.
Yes, it had the default password on it. I was flabbergasted that I got it.
Our engineer probably returned it to the default password.
All your settings are in it. It's not been cleaned.
So, I mean, just to clarify, that the station started to go downhill. There was a very serious problem with the management that took a great deal of money out of the station and fled. And the county government, which had helped fund the station to a high dollar level, basically seized all the equipment and sold it at an auction. And now the license for that station has been transferred to a new local organization and has just gone back on the air. And they are hoping to run a tighter ship going forward. But yes, that would have been one of ours.
Sorry about that.
And I'm going to bring that up with my good friend who installed that equipment, and we'll see what happened.
But I've also found in doing jobs for non-radio people, the default password is on things, and they're wondering why I do a lot of work with restaurants sometimes, and they wonder why their POS system is being hacked. It's because they just plugged in a Linksys router and just left everything the way it was. So it's not just in the radio broadcasting industry, it's all over. And homes are another big one, where they just slap it in and then wonder why their computers get slow in a little while. So you just have to it's common sense. And going back to passwords, it's common sense to not store those on a shared drive such as a Google Drive or something like that. I actually left a job in a day because I got hired and found out that's what they were doing, and I quit because they didn't want to change or anything. So, and the Post-it note, of course, the blue tape, that's a new one for me, but blue tape is not good. And a password vault is the way to do it because, I always use the mythical beer truck. We could all have the passwords written down somewhere where it's good for us. But if we get hit by that mythical beer truck, we're not going to be getting into, if my engineer gets hit by the mythical beer truck, I'm not going to be able to get into the system if I hadn't set it up. But with a password vault that's segregated correctly with groups for engineering, for the office, for a studio space, then, you give your general manager, at least the general manager, access to those. If the mythical beer truck comes along and wipes out your engineer, we can still get to the passwords that are set up on the equipment. There's nothing more horrible than having to hold that reset button and get it all back to factory defaults and have to reprogram everything and take yourself off the air. Because the minute you do that to your ES machine, you might as well just shut your transmitter off for a little while you get it reprogrammed because you're in default and you're in violation. So, yeah. And again, I don't charge anything for doing this for y'all to set up the password vault for you. It takes me a little bit of time, but I gladly do it. We do ask that if you like the product and you use it, give us a little donation to the station because we're trying to raise money for a transmitter and an antenna right now. So, any questions?
I see John has a question or comment, and then Lewis.
Yeah, I have a question about transmitters, which you have to be able to remotely control and view the transmitter information, the configuration and the diagnostics and everything. So you're saying, we're using tail equipment, so that uses an app. You can't reach it with a browser that I know of. So you need an app. So you're saying we should put an
So
computer running at the transmitter site, run the app on the computer, and
where do you usually look at that app? At the station or at your house? Just out of
we
curiosity.
do it. We have a distributed station, so some of us at our houses,
Okay.
sometimes at the station.
So what I recommend is VPN tunnel between station and transmitter site, and then you can just use the app right there at the station, and it will just go out the right way, go out the tunnel to the transmitter, pull the data that you need, and so that's cool. A lot of firewalls, I recommend Unify equipment, Ubiquity equipment. A lot of those firewalls have the ability to set up private VPN tunnels, such as like you set up your name and everything, and you have the VPN client on your machine at home. So then you would connect to the box and use the app on your computer, and it'll go to the server like it's supposed to, or not server, sorry, wrong place I'm working, to the transmitter, and you'll be able to read all your data that you need to get through the app.
Okay.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is cool. And if it's configured correctly, it's seamless, right? You don't even really notice it, especially when you're at the studio. It just seems like you're talking. You're all on the same network. Right. It shouldn't. The security should not, to make the security and to protect yourself, should not make it hard to use your equipment or use and get the data that you need, right? FCC just wants to be, and I'm not a big FCC fan, but the FCC just wants you to protect your stuff and protect the airwaves, and that's all. But they don't want you not to be able to, well, maybe they don't, but they don't want you to be able not to broadcast, right? Or be able to do your job and be compliant with the other rules that they have mandated for us to follow.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome, John. Lewis.
Oh, yeah. Is there any sense of when this happened? I heard it in real time, and it seemed to be incredibly juvenile, but the voice of the person was like, it was an adult voice, like a mature man with a notable Russian accent that I thought,
Could be.
Yeah. So the question is the FCC concerned in some sense because these might be state actors or something like, is that nefarious or is it just pranksters?
I'm going to go with the prankster side of that. I can't see taking over a EAS machine other than to either push out a prank or, zombie apocalypse. But I just don't see that being something nefarious. But they're also probing, right? It is just a probe. So it's a probe to see what's out there. And I mean, we've been doing it since the internet even started. Once computers got online, even with modems, we were always trying. I'm an ex-hacker. I mean, read The Cuckoo's Nest, or Cuckoo's Egg. I can't remember.
Cuckoo's Nest, huh?
Cuckoo's Nest by Brian Stahl. Excellent. Physicist as a sysadmin trying to figure out where 5 cents went or something on his phone bill at his university. And he ended up going to Russia, I think is where.
I thought it was Germany. But,
Germany is over there and in Europe. And that's where the hacker was. And the way he tracked it down was just fabulous. And it's a good read. I read it once every few years.
We don't know exactly where these intrusions have happened. The FCC is not going to reveal all of this. But what they have said, which was alarming and is in the document, is that these attacks have continued this year. Now, there is another thing that's happened, which quite a bit over the years, which draws very serious fines, which is the unauthorized broadcast of the EAS attention signal. One famous case is known as the Bobby Bones incident, where a network radio show was talking about a previous national test, and they played a recording of that test over the air, which included the EAS tones. And in that case, the test involved an EAN broadcast. It is a national alert from the White House. And because dozens and dozens of stations were tuned to the EAS network, this unauthorized broadcast cascaded through the system, and the tones were rebroadcast not only by radio stations, but TV as well, and cable stations, all announcing that we're suspending regular programming due to a request from the White House. The message also said, do not use the telephone. Well, you can imagine this was a bizarre incident, a frightening one. We also had the Hawaiian false missile alert just a few years ago. So there have been a number of these mistakes. Some of them are known because they were covered in the news media. But to answer your question, I bet many of these intrusions are not publicly known, and they're not surfaced by the FCC because they're security sensitive. And I think probably some of these do originate in other countries.
You will never hear iHeart or any of those companies tell you that they have been hacked.
Yeah, only if the FCC investigates and exposes that.
Right. Otherwise, they will never come out and tell you. I will never tell you if I ever get hacked either, whether it's here at where I work or my station or my wife's coffee shop. So if I get hacked at the coffee shop, I'm just going to go crawl in a hole at this point. So.
Any other questions or comments?
Oh, here's another comment. Your description earlier of how these typically happen, where and some old timer comes in and throws in the equipment, was so spot on. I think we were both like feeling it. Exactly.
Because you got to remember when these guys started with radio, it was telco wiring, right? Phone cables, phone lines going from point A to point B, unless the studio had the transmitter site. There was no internet, right? And there was no passwords. There was nothing. So they're just doing, they're there to keep the studio running correctly and keeping the transmitter running. Now they have to do all that. They have to know computers. They have to go networking. They have to know all these things. And a lot of these companies, we'll use iHeart as the example, are getting rid of these older guys and bringing in young guys who know networking but know nothing about RF technology. And so they wonder why their stations start sounding bad. And then they have to go back hat in hand and bring back this old engineer, and that guy's going to charge them a ton of money now, because that's what I would do.
Yes, and similar to that is knowledge about IPAWS. There is just not the training available for broadcasters to really understand how the IPAWS system works. At my former office at FEMA, we did a lot of training, but the training was only for emergency managers whose job is to originate alerts. We didn't train broadcasters, and the FCC doesn't offer any help on that at all. The last thing I saw was a seminar, a YouTube video on EAS for low power FM stations. It was only 10 minutes long. It's several years old, and it didn't tell you anything about how to set up your EAS equipment. It was only about how you're going to be breaking the law if it's not working. So there's not the help necessary in this. And I filed that with the FCC. And the commission's response to that was, we don't have the resources to help stations deal with this. But we do have the resources to penalize them if it's not working.
Good.
Someone mentioned about a transcript. That's kind of a new thing for me. I haven't done that yet.
Most of the times when you record these Zoom calls, they will make a transcript.
So when I look for the recording, I could probably find a transcript too. Okay,
Yeah.
Great.
Yep.
Awesome.
I could probably do it for you if you need, Stephanie. So let me know.
Okay, so then I can post it with the link for the recording when I let everyone know about that. Okay, so thanks for that question. Any other questions, comments, closing remarks?
I just want to say thank you to you guys. We have a great engineer who's set all that up for us, so we're doing okay here. But I figured I'd jump on and get some more learning from you guys. So thank you. Truly appreciate it. I'm the general manager, so that's not my forte. I need to understand it, but I don't have to build it.
What station are you at?
WUSB, Stony Brook University.
Oh, okay. Cool. Well,
Thanks,
thank you.
Isabel.
Frank Burgert is our chief engineer.
Okay, cool.
There was another question in the chat.
Yeah, I see. Other than the password and firewall, was there any other requirement from FCC?
Not this time. All the other requirements are merely proposed. But it's just those three, the firewall, software patches, and the passwords in this latest rule change that has the compliance date of September 29.
So yeah, that's right. The September 29th, that's who knows? They might move that deadline, but I'm not holding my breath. So if you guys do need help, please reach out, and not on the 28th. Especially also because a few of us are probably going to be at the grassroots conference. But if you see me there, I am trying to get there. Please, I will try and do some work for you right there at the conference in the
Maybe
bar.
put your email in the chat, William.
Yeah, to kill me. No, just kidding. I have to type. Oh man. Or you can go to
Can
give me
you
a
forward a
second.
copy of the email to?
Let's see.
Yeah, I'll add you to the list, Michael. MHEM.
And if you do need help, please fill this form out. Then I'm also adding the URL for which decided not to go.
Yeah, this seminar
There we
was
go.
a good idea, so thank you. Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. And again, if you do have questions about firewall or password managers and you're really not sure what to do, just, do drop me a line or fill out the form and I will get back to you as quickly as I can. I do have a day job, and as I said, my wife does own a coffee shop, so I'm dealing with that as well. Don't go into food service. This is my third round and I'm already tired.
I did that for 20 years before I did this for 20 years.
Yeah, I know. So my mom would roll over
intense.
in the grave if I owned it. So I said, my name's not going on this one. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ben and William, for sharing your time and your knowledge. This is great information.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you.
And
Thank you.
Thank you.
yeah,
Ben, I met with the Red Cross today. Just to let you know. So, all right, folks. Thank you. I got to run.
thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, Stephanie.
You bet. Take care.